My birthday had always been something small, intimate, not because I demanded expensive gifts, but because I cherished the effort behind them. A handmade card, a dinner at home, even a simple walk in the park. Those things meant the world to me. This year was different. Things had been tense. My husband, Daniel, had been coming home later than usual. He looked exhausted, distracted. He told me he was under immense pressure at work, that bonuses might not come this year. I believed him. A week before my birthday, I hinted, jokingly, about a necklace I had seen in a little boutique downtown. "It's too much," I laughed. "But a girl can dream, right?" He smiled faintly and kissed my forehead. "Sweetheart, I'd love to, but money's tight right now. Let's keep it simple this year." And so I did. I lowered my expectations. On the morning of my birthday, Daniel handed me a small cupcake with a candle and said, "We'll celebrate properly next year, I promise." I told him it was fine. I smiled, but deep down, I felt a dull ache. I missed the days when he would go out of his way to make me feel special. 3 days later, I was doing laundry. Daniel had left his suit jacket hanging over the chair in our bedroom. Normally, I never went through his pockets. We respected each other's privacy. But as I lifted the jacket, I felt something crumpled inside. Thinking it was just a receipt from lunch or dry cleaning, I pulled it out. It wasn't from a restaurant. It was from the same boutique where I had seen the necklace. The date? 2 days before my birthday. The price? Exactly the same as the one I had admired. My hands trembled. He had bought it. But for who? My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. The receipt listed a necklace with a small inscription service. That meant it had been personalized. I remembered our conversation clearly, how he had looked me in the eye and told me he couldn't afford it. So if it wasn't for me, who was it for? I stood in the bedroom with the crumpled receipt in my hand, staring at the ink like it might suddenly rearrange itself into something innocent. My stomach churned. I read it again and again, hoping that maybe I had misunderstood. But the details were there in black and white. 1 gold necklace, engraving service included, purchased 2 days before my birthday. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was for me, and he's just hiding it for some reason? Maybe he's planning a surprise later? But the thought didn't hold up. Daniel wasn't the surprise type. Not anymore. And if it was for me, why lie about not affording it? Why pretend like nothing was coming? My fingers smoothed the paper, and that's when I noticed something I had missed. A faint handwritten note at the bottom. The store clerk had scribbled the engraving details. My chest tightened as I read, "To L, always yours." The L wasn't me. My name starts with a completely different letter. My vision blurred as hot tears filled my eyes. My body felt heavy, like the air in the room had thickened. My mind scrambled to remember if Daniel had ever mentioned someone whose name began with L. And then, I did remember. A month ago, at one of his office gatherings, I met a woman named Lisa. She was stunning, tall, confident, with a laugh that seemed to follow Daniel wherever he went in the room. He introduced her as a new client he was trying to impress. I had shaken her hand and thought nothing of it. But now, the memory of the way her hand lingered in his, the way she leaned in close to speak to him, came rushing back. I sank down on the edge of the bed, receipt still in hand, my heart pounding so loudly I thought it might burst out of my chest. My mind replayed every moment over the past few months. The late nights, the distracted conversations, the way he would guard his phone when it buzzed. All the pieces were there. I had just refused to connect them. Rage began to simmer beneath my sadness. How long had this been going on? Did he think I was stupid? Did he think I wouldn't notice? Or worse, did he think I didn't deserve to know? I looked at the closet where his suits hung neatly. At the nightstand where his watch rested every night. At the wedding photo on the dresser of us smiling like nothing could break us. I wanted to smash it. I wanted to call him right then and demand the truth. But another voice in my head told me to wait. Don't confront him yet. Get proof. Get the whole picture before you give him a chance to lie again. I folded the receipt carefully and tucked it into my diary, between pages filled with better memories, moments that now felt like lies. The necklace was somewhere out there, around another woman's neck, carrying words he once promised only to me. And I knew one thing for certain. I would find out everything before I decided what to do next. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that receipt, that single letter, L, carved into gold. My mind played cruel scenarios on repeat. Daniel leaning over a jewelry counter, smiling as he picked out something delicate and perfect. For her. By morning, the sadness had hardened into something else. Cold determination. If he was going to betray me, I wasn't going to be blindsided again. I needed the truth, the whole truth, and I wasn't going to ask for it. I was going to take it. The first thing I did was check his phone. Daniel had been careless lately. He used to keep it with him at all times, even taking it into the bathroom. But that morning, he left it charging on the kitchen counter while he showered. My hands trembled as I picked it up, entering the passcode I had guessed months ago. Nothing in the recent messages. Nothing suspicious in the call log. He'd cleaned it. My stomach sank. That in itself was a sign. Daniel was sloppy with technology, but suddenly he'd become a master at deleting his tracks? That wasn't coincidence. I checked his email next. Again, nothing obvious. Until I opened the archived folder. There, hidden among random receipts and junk mail, was a short email from someone named LM. The subject line was just, "Last night." The message was brief. "Still thinking about you. I can still feel your hands on me. Can't wait for the necklace." I felt my blood run cold. It wasn't just the words. It was the fact that he hadn't deleted this. He'd saved it. Maybe as a trophy. Maybe because he liked reading it over and over. I took screenshots, quickly emailing them to myself, before placing the phone back exactly as I found it. But I wasn't done. If he was meeting her, I could catch him in the act. I downloaded a free tracking app onto his phone, one that would run silently in the background. I told myself it was wrong, that I was crossing a line. But then I remembered the necklace, the lies, the way he'd looked me in the eyes and told me he couldn't afford anything for my birthday. Over the next few days, I played the part of the loving wife. I laughed at his jokes, asked about his work, even kissed him goodbye in the mornings. Inside, I was keeping score. I watched his phone's location late at night when he had to stay at the office. I wrote down times, addresses, and then it happened. On Thursday evening, while he told me he had a client dinner, the tracker showed him parked outside an apartment complex across town. The name on the building's directory? L. Morgan. My hands clenched around my phone so tightly I thought I might crack the screen. The proof was right there, but I wasn't ready to confront him yet. No. I wanted him to hand me the truth himself, without knowing I already had it. Because when I finally made my move, I wanted it to destroy every excuse he had left. By Friday, my nerves were stretched so thin, I felt like I might snap at the slightest sound. Daniel's lies had become a constant background noise in my head, like a low hum I couldn't switch off. Every smile from him, every casual kiss on the cheek, felt like a calculated insult. That afternoon, he came home from work with his usual nonchalant charm, kissed me, and said, "Don't wait up tonight. Big client meeting. Might run late." My heart hammered against my ribs. The tracker app on my phone was already open in my pocket. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed my keys and followed. Not directly, but far enough behind to avoid suspicion. My headlights stayed off until I was several streets away. My mind raced with every possible outcome. Maybe he'd go to the office, and I'd be proven paranoid. Maybe I'd see her and lose my mind. Maybe I wouldn't be able to do. Whatever it was, I thought I could. The little blue dot on my phone led me straight across town. When it stopped moving, my stomach dropped. The same apartment complex from Thursday. L. Morgan's place. I parked half a block away, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. I sat there for 10 minutes, just staring at the building. Every second felt heavier than the last. My breathing was shallow, like my own body was trying to prepare me for impact. Then the door opened. Daniel stepped out of his car, wearing the shirt I'd bought him for our anniversary last year. He glanced around, not nervously, but casually, like a man walking into a place where he felt comfortable, welcomed. Then she appeared. She was tall, with long dark hair and an easy smile that hit me like a punch to the chest. She walked right up to him and wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing her lips to his like they had all the time in the world. Something inside me shattered. I felt it, like glass splintering in slow motion. My eyes burned, but I didn't cry. Not yet. I was too focused, too locked in on the sight of his hands sliding down her back, the same hands that used to hold me when I was scared, when I was happy, when I was his. They went inside together, laughing. The door closed behind them. I sat there for what felt like hours, my body numb, my thoughts buzzing. There it was. The proof. Not just in text, not just in my imagination, but in flesh and blood, in the most undeniable way possible. When I finally drove home, I didn't feel rage. Not yet. What I felt was clarity, a cold, sharp understanding that my marriage, the life I'd built with him, wasn't just cracked. It was already gone. And I knew the next time I saw him, I wouldn't be the same woman he thought he could lie to. When Daniel walked through the door the next morning, it was like nothing had happened. He tossed his keys onto the counter, gave me a lazy smile and said, "Morning, babe. Sorry I was so late." I watched him pour himself coffee, his back turned to me, and I realized something incredible. I felt nothing. No wave of pain, no heat of jealousy. Just an eerie stillness, like I was standing in the eye of a hurricane. I had seen enough. I knew enough. And if I wanted to survive this, no, if I wanted to win, I couldn't just explode and throw everything on the table. That would give him the upper hand. Men like Daniel thrive on making you seem crazy, on twisting the truth until you start doubting your own eyes. So I smiled back. I even touched his arm as I asked about his late-night meeting. He fed me some garbage about contract negotiations, completely unaware that just 12 hours ago, his lips were on someone else. That day, I began my quiet war. First, I pulled out our joint bank statements. I wasn't just looking for money spent on her, though I found plenty. I was looking for patterns, for weaknesses. Transfers he thought I wouldn't notice. Cash withdrawals right before his client dinners. Then I started moving my own money, slowly, carefully, into a separate account he couldn't touch. I began documenting everything: texts, call logs, screenshots of his location history. I saved them in a hidden folder under a name he'd never suspect. I even started practicing my voice. Calm, steady, almost detached. When the moment came, I wanted every word I said to land like a blade he didn't see coming. By the end of the week, I had enough to blow his life apart in more ways than one. But I wasn't ready yet. Because while the evidence was damning, I needed one final thing. Something undeniable. Something that would hit him in front of others, leaving no room for him to play the victim. I began studying his schedule, figuring out when he'd see her next. And when I found it, I planned my move. He still kissed me goodnight, still reached for me in the mornings like nothing had changed. But in my head, he was already gone. And in my heart, I was sharpening the knife, not to hurt him in the heat of the moment, but to cut away the last pieces of control he thought he had over me. Daniel had no idea the storm was coming, and that was exactly how I wanted it. The opportunity came faster than I expected. Thursday afternoon, Daniel texted that he'd be working late again. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I checked the location tracker I'd installed on his phone weeks earlier. He wasn't at the office. He wasn't even in the same part of the city. He was at the Marlowe Hotel. I knew it well. An upscale place with a quiet bar, dim lights, and plenty of rooms upstairs. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was adrenaline, the kind that comes right before you pull the trigger. I showered, put on a black dress that fit me like it was painted on, and did my makeup with precision. Not too much, just enough to make sure every eye in the room would turn when I walked in. I wanted him to see what he'd thrown away, and for her to understand exactly who she was up against. By the time I arrived, my hands weren't shaking. I felt cold, calculated, almost surgical. I walked straight into the bar, and there they were. Daniel was leaning toward her, whispering something that made her laugh. His hand was on her thigh under the table. For a moment, I just stood there, letting the sight burn itself into my memory. Then I moved. Daniel. The sound of his name in my voice cut through the noise like a blade. He froze. The girl turned, her smile collapsing when she saw me. "Sweetheart, this isn't," he started, but I held up a hand. "Calm, deadly calm. I'm not here to talk to you," I said. My eyes shifted to her. "I'm here to tell you that whatever promises he's been making you, whatever lies he's fed you, he made them all to me first. And just so you know, you're paying for your drinks tonight with my money." The bartender's head turned. A couple nearby went quiet, pretending not to listen. The color drained from Daniel's face. I took a small envelope from my purse and slid it across the table toward him. Inside was a printed stack of screenshots, messages, call logs, his hotel bookings, everything. I'd even highlighted the parts where he told her he was done with his wife. He didn't touch it, just stared at it like it was ticking. I leaned in close enough for him to hear the venom in my voice. "You've got 24 hours before this goes to your boss, your parents, and every friend we share. Use them wisely." Then I straightened, turned, and walked out, heels clicking, head high. The air outside was cold, but my chest burned with a strange mix of triumph and grief. The first strike had landed, but the war wasn't over. Not yet. I didn't hear from him that night. Not a single call, not a single text. Part of me thought he'd try to bluff it out, act like nothing happened. But by the next morning, my phone lit up before I'd even finished my coffee. "Daniel. We need to talk, please." "Daniel. You don't understand. It's not what it looked like." "Daniel. I can explain everything if you just give me a chance." I let the messages pile up. I didn't reply. It was intoxicating, watching him scramble while I held all the cards. By noon, the calls started. First once an hour, then every 20 minutes. My voicemail was filling with the same desperate tone over and over. The man who used to raise his voice at me for forgetting to buy milk was now begging like a man drowning. Around 3 in the afternoon, the messages changed. "Daniel. I'm outside your building." "Daniel. I'll wait as long as it takes." "So." I went to the window, and there he was, leaning against his car, hands stuffed into his jacket pockets, scanning the door like a lost child waiting for his mother. I could have let him in, could have given him the chance to explain, maybe even argue. But instead, I picked up my phone, took a slow breath, and sent a single text. "You have 19 hours left." I watched from my window as he read it. Even from that distance, I saw his shoulders slump. He didn't come up, didn't shout, just got in his car and drove away. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and started sorting through the next phase of my plan. This wasn't just about making him pay. It was about making sure he could never twist the story, never paint himself as the victim. I organized the screenshots into folders, added timestamps, collected bank statements showing the money he'd spent on her. Every detail, every scrap of proof was now neatly labeled and ready to drop like a guillotine. But here's the thing no one tells you about revenge. It's addictive. Once you start, it's hard to stop. And as I stared at those folders, I realized something. I didn't just want to win. I wanted him to break. Completely. So I made one final folder. I labeled it Her Turn. And it wasn't for him. It was for her. The girl who thought she'd stolen my husband. If she wanted him so badly, she was going to see exactly what she was getting. The countdown was still running, and the next move was going to be mine. The clock was down to 6 hours. I sat at my desk, coffee growing cold beside me, staring at the folder labeled Her Turn. My finger hovered over the mouse. Part of me wondered if I was taking it too far. The other part, the louder part, whispered, "No, he took it this far. You're just finishing it." I opened her Instagram. It was exactly what I expected. Filtered selfies, expensive dinners, weekend getaways. All smiles, all glitter, no trace of guilt. That's when I crafted my message. Since you seem so proud of what you've been doing, I thought you should see the full picture of the man you've been with. Enjoy. I attached screenshots of his text to me the same days he was with her. Pictures of our wedding, our anniversary, our vacations. Time-stamped so she'd see he was still telling me he loved me while whispering the same to her. Copies of his bank transactions showing gifts he'd bought her with our joint account. A short video clip of him kissing me in our kitchen, recorded just a week before I found the receipt in his jacket. I hit send. It took less than 5 minutes for my phone to buzz. An unknown number, one word, bitch. Then another. Stay out of this. I smiled, too late. Within the hour, the messages from Daniel changed. Daniel. What did you do? Daniel. She's furious. You're making this worse. Daniel. We can still fix this if you just stop now. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because a few minutes later, he called, and I let it go to voicemail. His voice was panicked, sharp, almost frantic. She's saying she's done. She's telling everyone I lied to her. She's threatening to tell people at work. Do you realize what you've started? Oh, I realized. That was the whole point. By the end of the night, her Instagram was private, and his last post, the smiling picture of the two of them at a concert, was gone. But I knew deleting wouldn't save him. The cracks were spreading, and he was caught between two fires. One was burning in his house. The other was now right in his arms. And I was about to make sure they met in the middle.